Welcome to CFO Talk. I'm your host, Steve Rosewald, Chief Learning Officer at CFO.University. Joining us from Wichita, Kansas today is Victor Ojeleye. Victor is currently the Business Group FP&A Manager at Cargill Inc. He has worked in accounting and business development at Koch Industries and interned at Nike. He earned his MBA from Chicago's Booth School of Business after graduating with accounting and finance degrees from Kansas State University, where he was the captain of the Wildcats basketball team and was part of a senior class with the most wins in K-State history. Welcome, Victor. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Steve. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we didn't meet, we met just a few weeks ago, but I was compelled because I read something that you'd written, and it had to do with a commitment you've made to 2022, and that's to really explore your leadership skills. So you had the confidence and the care in your network to kind of share what you had learned in the first 45 days of 2022 about your leadership skills. So I'm really curious. You listed 10 of those, and if we can jump right in, I'd like to talk about those.
Absolutely.
The first one I think you talked about was investing the time in individual growth that adds to team success. And can you give us a few examples of that and tell us what that means to you?
Yeah, Steve, I will. The first example is at work. And over the last few months, I've realized that my team all learns and contributes differently. And one of the things that I've tried to do is try to figure out what are the different ways that I can experiment with, to connect with and invest in helping everyone be successful. And so what I've done is realize that some of my teammates need brainstorming, some of my teammates need prioritization, and some of them don't need as much involvement in their work. Some of them just need guidance or someone to bounce ideas off of. So that ultimately helps our whole team be collectively better. And I've really continued to work on how can I help my team be successful. And some of it is just being present and letting them look at my example to be excited about how they should be performing, how they should be driving our culture, and really just inspiring the team from my own example. The second example is coaching 8-year-old girls basketball at the YMCA, which is really fun. And I've spent quite a bit of time on Sundays before practice, an hour before, working with some of the players who have skills that they want to work on. So what I found is whether they're new to basketball or more advanced than others, that time that we spend shooting layups, shooting free throws, teaching principles has collectively over 2 seasons now, one in the fall and one this winter, it's helped us get better, and I'm seeing it translate to the court. So it's been really cool to see how investing the time in individuals then contributes to team success.
What a great thing to learn at a young age. I mean, I wish somebody would give me that advice 25 years ago, because that's great advice. The individual is so important, and your team is what makes you successful. So that investment is really important. And the way you've gone about it, very thoughtful individually, I think that's wonderful. The second area you talked about is, and this gets to be a little harder question for me to interpret, so I really want some help on this, but you might miss some of the interdependencies in complex work. So plan for them next time. So it sounds like a learning opportunity, but tell us more what you mean by that.
Yeah, this is direct feedback that I got on a project that we're working on during budgeting as an FP&A lead in a regional business. And so there are things like tax rates, things like methodologies in your business that you often are all asking questions on. You have a long list of different business drivers that we're working on. And as a new team within my team and also globally, our regional leaders were all asking questions around what are the things that we need to be aligned on, what's our point of view for the US versus Latin America versus Europe. And there was a particular driver that we were asking questions about, and we did finally get to alignment on. But I think as we finally got to that final result, we learned that we probably could have gotten to that answer much faster. So we got the feedback. I took that feedback and said, how can we plan for these interdependencies as we go through this budgeting process next year? Because we have so many things that we're doing. We want to be efficient with our time. We want to learn. And so it was just a simple learning and opportunity for me to write down and say, hey, when you're doing things that are large and complex, you will miss some things, right? You might not know what you don't know. We're new to the role within 3 months, and I've gotten this great opportunity. And next year, I'll be able to flag it and put it as a work stream to say, okay, what are these things that we can all get aligned on earlier on? How can we communicate it, learn it faster, and be better? And so that was just one that was direct feedback of how do we plan for them next time.
That's great. You know, a little bit of project management, continuous improvement, all rolled up into, I think a key thing is making sure you look back and say, hey, these are where we stumbled. What did we learn from that? And and a lot of times we don't take that, right? We don't take that time to reflect and say, how can we improve the process? Because we're on to the next thing. So taking that time, I think, really valuable. And I think it's a great lesson for people to make sure we're improving the processes and not worry about stumbling, actually learn from those stumbles. So great message for people. The next one, you talk about raising intensity and clarity, really to drive accountability. And I think how you connect the accountability with kind of the intensity and clarity. I'm really curious to hear more about that.
Yeah. So Steve, I'm a big fan of the Kansas Leadership Center. I have a friend there. His name is Steve O'Malley, who I've read their book. It's called The Leadership Edge. And so they have a principle called Raise the Heat. And so as I went through some of their courses recently in the last year, I've learned that each of us individually has to experiment with how we become our best self in driving accountability, right? I've gotten feedback at times that you might be too nice, right? And so in terms of whenever you think about things that you're really passionate about, you may have to use a different approach. And so I recently inherited a scorecard that had some yellows and some reds and some greens as we're driving forward some key initiatives. And so as we've had maybe slippage on certain things that need to be delivered by certain dates, or there's some priorities that I'm getting more pressure from the business or leadership that need to get done sooner, I've had to adapt my style. And so it's a balance of being tough on issues, but being good to people. And so that's something that I continue to work through. And that Kansas Leadership Center principle of raising the heat and being firm is not a bad thing, right? We all want to get things done, but we also all need to be accountable for our own actions as well as how we deliver, and making a promise, learning that maybe it might take longer. That's okay. Sometimes you do realize, hey, we didn't know that it would take longer in order to get this done. And so it's a learning process, right? But just knowing that myself, I'm working through how to raise accountability and figure out how to be a strong communicator of that so that I convey the right level of accountability that I want, and know that it's coming from a good place, right? And know that I'm well-intentioned and have good intentions. So that's what that one means. And again, it's another thing that I'm on a journey learning how to improve.
Well, it's interesting. We've had a couple conversations, or one longer conversation earlier, and then I've seen your work and I've seen how you approach people a little bit. And I don't think you're talking about mean-spirited, because I can't even see that in you at all. But that toughness you're talking about, how does that manifest itself with that great smile and your personality that definitely is people-driven?
Yeah, I think it's just in the direct approach. I recently took a survey, and they talk about how your style can be direct or indirect, and it's just simply just eye contact and speaking slowly and speaking, addressing the person that owns or is accountable for the task or the initiative, and saying, hey, what you're working is not what you're working on, or how you're doing what you're doing, or what you're doing is not working. We're not meeting expectations. What do we need to do differently, right? Or we committed to, right? Using the phrases that help us understand, hey, what is the thing that we agreed to? When is the timeline we agreed to get it done? And what are the roadblocks? And then also, how can I help? Like, what are the roadblocks? What else do we not know? So I try to blend those things together. And again, it's not perfect, but I've tried to use that style. And then there's times where, yes, I'm smiling now, but there's times when I am pretty frustrated that we're behind schedule on something, right? So the emotion, you have to be authentic, right? That, hey, we're not doing what we said we would do. What needs to change? And so I think there's a balance again, and we're all human. You can make mistakes, but I definitely always try to make sure I'm cautious of, hey, I gave that person feedback, or I said this that way, and I try to ask for feedback on, hey, how did I come across in that discussion? So it's an evolving process, but definitely, as I said, I've tried to continue to learn, because I've gotten the feedback that if you are, if you're a nice guy or you have good intentions, it may be hard for you to get things done, especially when you're influencing people without authority. So it's a journey again.
Yeah, no, you're learning a lot. I can see it, the way you deal with people. Stephen Covey uses this term with people, slow is fast and fast is slow. Really, and the point he's trying to make is they're really important. You have to really be careful and be thoughtful. And it sounds like you're really taking the time to know how to deal with people, how to work with them, how to appreciate them, and how to make sure that they know that you're working for them, even if you have to give tough love or whatever the words are that we use to help them keep accountable. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You also talked, I think your fourth piece was, the team goes as I go. So be high energy, high engagement. Let's say you're having a bad day. How do you keep that up when you're having a bad day and, keep them not from suffering from your bad day?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll say a couple things. One is, regardless of whether you realize it or not, that people are always watching you, right? They watch your emotions, they watch your body language. I'm checking my phone during a meeting, which I'm guilty of because I'm talking about it, right? There's that urge to, keep things moving and stay connected. And so people are always watching your body language. And so that's one. Number two is I got some feedback from a close mentor maybe 10 years ago, and they said, you never allow people to see your really, really bad days. You can do that at home. Your family's there to comfort you. You have things that you're struggling with, tensions, turmoils internally. And that's, you have a safe space for that, but you always have to present yourself as a strong, leader. I would counter that with, Brene Brown or others that say leaders also have to be vulnerable, right? So that's the second point. And I think one of the things that I found is somewhere in between, right? You have to continue to be able to be present in the moment. We have 10 meetings in a day, breathe in, breathe out, focus on the next meeting. What's the topic we're focused on here? And when I am having a bad day, I might, take a walk. I might, find something that takes my mind off of it, or, come back to it later and talk to the person I was working with and say, hey, how can we rethink this? I struggled with this topic and how we left it, work directly. Or the other thing that I like to do is talk to family. I'm really close with my mom. She's been an advisor personally and with work. And usually I'll say, hey, here's something I've been wrestling with. This is how I want to solve it. Is that how you think I should solve it? And so I do the same thing with other mentors too. So I think one of those things is in the moment, between 6 and 5 o'clock or whatever time you're at work, you have to struggle and fight through it. And it's also okay to have a bad day. You can tell your team, hey, I'm wrestling with this issue. Don't let it, I will try my best not to let it impact what we're doing here. But I mean, we're all human, right? And so I tend to go for the, approach of maybe talking to the person that I was working with and maybe revisiting the issue and not really running away from it, getting advice, and then also just making it known that, hey, I need some time to think, I need time to process. And if it's something that it's a meeting getting to a point where I don't have a good answer, I might say, yeah, let's revisit this, right? And so there's those different styles of things that I'm again experimenting with to say, okay, how do I deal with it? But people are always watching you, and you have to do your best to bring energy. And the other example I'll give is that energy for me is, when I'm coaching, I realize when I'm active, when I'm talking, when I'm calling people by name, when you have that palpable culture in the environment you're in, people feed off of that, right? So it's draining, right? But you got to find ways to fill your cup, right? So the weekend, when family's here, whatever your hobbies are, that's the burden that comes with that leadership opportunity. And we all, have to continue to find ways to kind of drive forward and bring that energy. So.
Well, kind of three things came out of that for me. One is your focus continues to be on people and how you interact with people and giving them energy and giving them part of your energy. Another thing is your willingness to take feedback. I mean, I don't know how many times you've said feedback already in our conversations, but you're willing to learn and you're looking at mentors, and your mentors cover a whole slew of things, from the Leadership Center in Kansas State to your mom, to people. And I think that yeah, being able to accept that advice and be willing to go to other people and ask them about, I don't know this answer, is such a great leadership tool. So the balancing act, how far do we go on both sides? That's always, do we share everything? How much do we share? And that's important. And then the whole feedback and mentoring, I just think that's a wonderful way to approach it. The next item you mentioned is, give your teams a chance to rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
And, I love this one. I would love to hear some examples of what that means and what that means to you.
Yeah. And I'll give a couple examples again, starting with work. Very simple concept we all see every day is email, right? And I might get copied on an email, my manager, my teammate, all of us get copied on emails. And one of the things for me is I've transitioned and gotten this great new privilege to lead a team is that I feel as if I need to answer the email, right? I need to step up and respond or take the action. And one thing that I've noticed is that if I'm first, it might take away an opportunity for someone who's much smarter than myself or someone who should really own it to step up. And so whether it's a project or a quick answer, one of the things that I think is my teammate or my partner or project teammate, are they thinking the same thing I'm thinking? Not that I'm right, but is my step forward diminishing someone else's opportunity? So conceptually, it means give others an opportunity to step up and take it their own route, take their own approach and answer. And also it limits the amount of time that you might have to spend thinking. Maybe you can add value in a small piece of it, but someone else already has the body of work. And so that's something that I'm working through to help myself kind of give others opportunities. And then there's other intentional ways of just letting teammates lead, right? And not giving so much guidance and letting them lead, be creative, give little feedback intentionally, right? So that they can grow and then, work with them. And then, when I think about it from a basketball or coaching standpoint, sometimes at practice, I might not do a teaching point, right? I might let the players and yes, they're 9-year-old, basketball players, but some of them are picking up faster than others. And over a process of 5 to 6 months, I've realized that they are now starting to tell each other, hey, you've got to be here, and they start to, and that's really rewarding for me to see that the repetitions and the way that, that's the way teams work, right? And sports aren't just about winning and losing. They're about life lessons and learning and repetitions and, do it again, right? And we all build that. So I think those are some of the ways that I've observed how, letting them rise to occasion and ultimately in the game, we're doing some of those things that we work on. But, I think that's a similar, analogy to work in life is that, you got to give people an opportunity because there's so many people around me that know more than I do. And it also takes some things off my own plate, right? Because we all can't take it on ourselves.
Yeah. The whole idea that, leaders create leaders, right? And that's kind of how you're approaching it. Let other people, don't try to be the smartest guy in the room all the time. Let other people share that and grow through that. That's wise beyond your years. That's fantastic. You talk about celebrating victories and then even when things need to be fixed. And I wasn't sure, I wanted to kind of explore that a little bit because I get to celebrating the victories, but then how do you, the twist that says, hey, we might have a victory that was kind of a halfway there. We still need to improve or we need to fix things. So how did you kind of learn from that experience?
Yeah. One example for me is, in finance, FP&A, we've got ERP systems and reporting that's a big driver or a big part of our toolkit, right? We've got to have great reporting, strong, financials in order to then do your forecasting, right? So if you're working on things that are very complex, whether it's in the data space or in the analytics space, there's times when, the mountain looks very, very significant, right? And it's easy to get into the mode of, we don't have maybe the reporting that we need. We're trying to crack this particular riddle as far as the data and the inputs that we need, but there's different small steps you need to take in order to get there. And I find myself, I think it's easy for teams to maybe want to easily throw in the towel or say this is super complex. I know that deployment teams work really hard in order to build the reporting and deploy the systems that you need and the data and the inputs. And one of the things I've realized is sometimes you have a win with talent. Sometimes you have a win with a particular report or a requirement. Sometimes you have a win that is just something that is just a small thing from from standpoint of a teammate getting something solved or learning something, right? So those things can't be overlooked, right? You have to use those to build morale, show that you're making progress on the actual scorecard, right? But also to keep yourselves motivated holistically in these really tough challenges. And again, I'll borrow from the Kansas Leadership Center where they talk about really complex problems versus really simple problems. Those simple problems can be done on a certain timeline. They're very straightforward, but complex problems, it's about progress. And so one of the things that I've kind of taken from this is that celebrating those small wins, at the end of your week, 100 things to do, just make sure you're making progress. And I think that's really the essence of this, is celebrating your small wins. Hey, I was able to get my coffee, and I was able to get my day started, and I was getting my work day startup on a good started on a good foot, and that made my day go that much better, right? And some of those types of things that we often overlook, because as a fixer or someone who's really aspirational to get many things done, we have to take a step back and see some of the small things too. So that's just a reminder on many fronts to celebrate that that set of small wins, and hopefully in the end those small things build up to be that end goal or something like it. So
I think that's a great way to put it, because no great triumph was ever, it didn't just happen, right? It happened because of all the little things before that. There's a trainer, the trainer for, and I like cycling, so I like cycling a lot. So I follow cycling. And so there was a team called Team Ineos, and they used to be Sky. They were a racing team that did really well in the Tour de France for a number of years. And their trainer said, all we're trying to do is improve 1% every day. Well, you think about that, 1% every day is a lot, right? But his point was, we want to look at all the details and just improve a little bit each day. And then when we get through the whole year, we're going to have a pretty darn good team. And so the philosophy was, where do we look today? Is it in our pedals? Is it in our handlebars? Is it in our training regimen? And they just tweak it a little bit. And they had a real good run in the big cycling races. But his philosophy was a lot like what you just described: is have those little victories, and it turns into big victories. So neat. I love this one. Being a better listener.
Yeah.
So tell me, how you work on that. I suspect you were probably a pretty good listener before, but how have you improved that, and what's it done for you?
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Actually, there's a sticky note right here that says, be a better listener, to start. And it's a reminder, as we all often have solutions as we begin to listen. And I found myself, that's my biggest weakness. I listen maybe intently or too intently to where I start to formulate an answer or response. And so this one was a specific example where in a team meeting, a teammate started to, share about an idea, and I chimed in, some information to support the idea when they got finished. And it led to the rest of the team kind of going down another path. And I acknowledged it, recognized that, man, I should have held that information until towards the end, just to confirm that I was listening to them and not derailed their thought. And so I acknowledged it. I apologized in the meeting and said, hey, sorry, I didn't intend to do that. And then after the meeting, I also went and talked to them individually and said, hey, I've got to be a better listener. I didn't intend to, derail your discussion there. We're all a really engaged team, which we are. We're all a bunch of high achievers. And I said, hey, just jump in there. Just know that this is how our team, it was a new team member. This is how our team operates. Make sure you dive in there. And we all might at times speak over each other at times, but it's well-intentioned. Know that I come from a good place. And so that was just a reminder for myself that it's something I'm working on. I was able to acknowledge it with the individual, and we're squared away, but also just realize that, sometimes just listening to absorb versus listening to solution are two different things. And there's also different ways where you're listening to learn too, right? So it's just something I'm working on. I'm just trying to be a better listener, and in life and work and personally. So that's really the reason behind that one. And again, I took many of the examples in the 45 days from things that I was learning or had happened. So
yeah. Well, there's a gentleman that I've met, a good coming. I consider him a good friend. His name is Andrew Cott, and he runs a data analytics team for a large U.S. corporation. He lives in Ireland. But I definitely ought to introduce you to him. You'd enjoy it. You'd enjoy Andrew a lot. But he also reminded me that, Steve, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. That's God made us with 2 ears and 1 mouth for that reason, listening. And that's so I struggle with that all the time too. Not too, but I struggle with making sure that I don't want to get my answer out so quickly. Let people have their say. And I'm older than you, and I still struggle with that. So that's something I really want to work on. So I appreciate your thoughts on that. Your 8th item was, know the boundaries and honor them fully. Know your boundaries and honor them fully. And I'd like to understand how you use that, what you mean by that, and how you use it.
Yeah. This is a focus on myself. This is a self-care topic here, and this one is about as much as we work and as much as we, maybe are committed to something, right? What is the thing that keeps you busy, right? I think we all ask that question when we go to see friends and family. Say, what do you do, right? And so for me, it's work and community, and that takes a lot of energy. And so 2 sides of it. One is the boundaries of connectivity, right? Where am I connected to work? We all have the work cell phone, we have our computer, we've got email. And so one of the things that I've actually done is I have left work email off of my personal iPad, right? So that's the one place at home where I can do family, I can do leisure, I can do personal business, and I won't get an email from work that is a notification, just to kind of really reshape and construct my own boundary in a sense, right? To have that wall up that, hey, this is a safe space. It's not going to set off an alarm that says in my mind, I've got to get something done, right? So when you see an email, on your badge on your phone, you see, I've got 10 unread emails. What do I need to do, right? So turning that off and creating that space. And then the second kind of mechanism that I've done is the weekend, right? And we all get 52 or so weekends a year, and those are 52 vacations, as I've been told. And I got a friend who told me, hey, you get 52 vacations a year, use them wisely, right? And so it's interesting. What I've tried to do is shift the way that I work from working at a pace that is, so-so, or, not that I haven't been a high achiever. It's just you work and then things might bleed into Saturday or Sunday. But what I've tried to do is just go really hard on Monday through Friday. And that might mean 6 to 6 or 6 to 8 o'clock. And it's going to ebb and flow depending on the projects. But that way I can protect the weekend and honor that time that's for myself, for my family, or whatever hobbies I'm doing. And then also honoring your commitments. There's been times when I've had community service events or dinners with large companies in town, and I've said, sorry, I made a commitment. I'm coaching basketball tonight. I can't go, right? And there was one such event where, we had a conflict. I hadn't looked at the calendar, and I said, hey, it's more important for me to invest in these youth than go to that event. And then same thing, it's just honoring the commitments around if you have to leave for work to pick up your kids, if you have, childcare, if you've got mom or dad you're taking care of. We all have different things. It's just that reminder that we've got to set the boundaries. Work will always be there. Something I'm really still struggling to figure out how to, set boundaries. But these are a couple things that I've done. Actually, the iPad thing was a challenge from a friend who knows I like tech, but they said, hey, try this for a month. Don't install the Outlook on your iPad and see how it goes. And I've been doing it for 6 months. So it's been awesome to have that. And then if I know I'm going to work, I also found that the work I would do is much better because I know that I will use my work computer. It'll be a targeted effort, a high quality effort. And then there's not a mix between me trying to be, connected right on, on my personal iPad and it's a work email. So creating those boundaries so you can do targeted focused work has been something that I've tried, and it seems to be working. So
that whole topic between work-life balance or work-life integration or whatever people want to call it, that's a whole topic, right? That's a whole CFO talk. But that's a great way to, to consciously think, what are my boundaries, right? Some of us just get in the habit of, I just got this to do, I'm just going to go do it. And I think that can mushroom into something that you never thought you'd want to be a part of, right? So having those boundaries and consciously thinking about them is really helpful. You talk about your team needing a champion. What happens when they don't have it, when you aren't their champion?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think champion to me is an advocate, whether you're helping to prioritize their time, defend their capabilities, and really create boundaries almost around your team to say, hey, this is what we do, this is our skill set, and really championing them for who they are. But when you don't have that, I think that's where the work that you've done to help your team know how to be their own advocate has to turn on, right? It has to be there. And so hopefully I'm investing that time, right? Whether it's, breaking down boundaries. Hey, I'm stuck. I need someone to help elevate, this work, or you need someone to partner with on those types of things. Hopefully the way that you've, rubbed off on your team becomes, an active part of how they operate when you're not there, or when someone else isn't there. Because I know my mentors have been champions for me, whether in work or other spaces, and the things that they told me have come to mind when I've kind of run out of ideas. And it's tough when you don't have someone to champion for you, whether it's whether you're looking for a new job, or whether you're working on a project, or you need resources or someone to help you on something, and you can't get a little bit of their time, and you just need someone to say, hey, can we get a little bit of that individual's time, and then you get that buy-in. So it's a little bit of those tactics, right, that you're using to influence, and you just hope that the work you've done helps people think about how to do it best themselves. But we're never there yet, but it is a good reminder that you've got to champion well when you are given the opportunity. So I'm working on that. And again, I'll go back to the sports. When I'm championing my team and I'm cheering them on, it's a lot different than a coach that maybe takes a different approach and might be negative, or calling out mistakes. Positive energy, I think, oftentimes will supersede the negative energy, and allow you to look past small mistakes and keep moving forward. So
that's great. Great answer. Great answer as a champion, and you've had your share of champions, so that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I left this last one. This is actually the first one on your list, but I left it for last because it's really interesting. We have a professional with the rigor of FP&A, right? Also marrying this the idea of empathy, because your last one was lead with your heart. And so that's really compelling. And FP&A, rigor, all that, the numbers crunching, but you're saying that's not where it starts. It starts with your heart. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, Steve. This one I think of a few things in a sense when I think about lead with your heart. The phrase actually came from one of the parents of the team that I coach, and it's not something new or maybe a surprise, but they told me that they've observed that leading with your heart is part of my style, or part of something that I've kind of made my approach. And so I reflected a little bit on it, and I said, what does that mean? And to me, it means care. It means discipline. It means joy. It means encouragement. And yes, we talk about the rigor of the numbers in FP&A and business. We're always dealing with solving really challenging problems. But my family are doctors. They're saving lives every day, right? And they're fixing things that are much more important than what I do. But what I've found is that if I can take a step back and lead with what I believe is doing the right thing, putting people first, and reaching for the best that we can achieve as a team, meaning excellence. It might not be perfect. I think that is the core of how to lead. And ultimately, I'm not a perfect person, right? But what your heart says is to treat people the right way and be a good person and do right by people, then that'll enable you all to solve the most challenging problems. Because if you don't have the people, then you can't even solve anything, right? And so it's something that I've continued to give my passion to, and I think the sweet spot is finding what that purpose is, and you have a why, you have why you do things and what you enjoy. But I've really found great energy and reward in being around people and solving great problems, contributing to my company, contributing to the community here. So that's really where it anchors for me, and just continue to pursue things that fill me up so I can continue to impact people. So
Victor, I have a feeling you and your teams are going to solve a lot of problems, not just business problems, but other problems. And that's really exciting. So, that'll wrap up, CFO Talk today. And it's been really a joy with you. Thank you for joining us, Victor. It's been wonderful having you on the show.
thank you, Steve. It's a great honor.
That wraps up today's CFO Talk. CFO.University is a community of member scholars, companies, and trusted advisors committed to the professional development of chief financial officers. Learn more about us at www.cfo.university. Until next time, enjoy, learn, engage.